Garcia and welcome to my tutorial. This tutorial is based on the types of questions needed in reading comprehension skill for taking the TOEFL IBT test. It's going to help you to understand the difference between questions and how to distinguish them for their characteristics. So let's start. First of all, we have the vocabulary questions, which basically test the understanding of the meaning of the word or phrase from context. So, to answer these kind of questions, we must develop the skill of using context for guessing the meaning of a word in an effective way. In order to identify this question, we have to keep in mind the example. The word or phrase is closest in meaning to. As you can see, this example is demanding you the meaning of a word or phrase. This is the most common phrase in order to ask for meaning. Also, to manage this kind of questions, you must to apply strategies for improving context skills. For example, determines what part of a speech the word is. If it is a noun, verb, adjective, adverb, etc. In these questions, you must make connection between ideas using pronouns and adjectives. But you have to be careful about the different word for a particular word or adjective. For example, if you have the proper noun Michael, which is the referent, you must think of what kind of pronoun could replace to this name. So, in this case, the appropriate pronoun or reference word is he, which is a subject pronoun, third person of singular for male gender. For identifying this kind of questions, it's necessary to keep in mind the phrase, the word in the passage refers to. This phrase will help you to determine quickly what the question is about. Besides, you have some strategies for answering reference questions. For example, determine what kind of reference words is being used. If it is third person pronoun, possessive pronoun, object pronoun, reflexive pronoun, etc. Identify if the reference word is singular or plural. For example, this for singular and this for plural. Paraphrasing questions. These questions are based on recognizing sentence paraphrases. From context, you have to look for which of the answer is closest in meaning to original sentence. Most of these questions look like this. Which of the sentences below best expresses the essential information? Besides, there are some strategies for understanding these kinds of questions better. For example, be careful about punctuation, like commas, in order to separate the sentences in parts. Look for transitional words or phrases that indicate time, contrast, and addition. Sentence insertion questions. In these questions, you must insert a sentence into a passage for understanding the logical organization, the logical and grammatical connections between sentences in the passage. Usually this kind of questions looks like this. Where will the sentence best fit? Click on a square to add the sequence to the passage. Some strategies to answer sentences insertion questions are the following. Read a sentence to determine if it is talking about general idea or specific examples or details. Look for transitional words or phrases for establishing a relationship between sentences. Factual information questions. These kinds of questions is about the ability to recognize and understand the details and examples. To support the main ideas, you can recognize these questions through the following phrases. According to the paragraph, is stated in paragraph, what is implied in paragraph, is suggested in paragraph. There are some strategies for answering these questions. Look for any indications in the question that tell you where the answer is located. For example, according to paragraph 2, paragraph 4 states that, etc. Look for keywords like dates, names, and locations to help you scan information and to eliminate wrong answers. Negative factual information questions. These questions are based on identifying two types of information: true versus false information. Details provided in the passage versus information that is not provided. You have to choose the answer that is incorrect according to the passage. For identifying these questions, you have to keep in mind these phrases. According to the passage, which of the following is not true? All of the following are mentioned except. Additionally, there are strategies for helping you to answer these questions. For example, look for indications in the question that tell you where the answer is located. Look for keywords in the answer choices to help you scan for information and eliminate answers found in the passage. Inference questions. These questions are based on making logical guesses about information that is not stated in the passage. You have to use your critical thinking for guessing what the sentence is talking about. You must be concentrated on the information from the passage for getting the appropriate answer. Most of these questions look like this. What can be inferred from the paragraph? X about. What is implied by the author in paragraph X? In paragraph X, it can be inferred that. Here are some tips for answering inference questions. Number 1. Look for any indications in the questions that tell you where the answer is located. Number 2. Look for information in the passage that contradicts an answer and eliminate the answer choice. Rhetorical purpose questions ask you to understand the relationship of words and phrases to the ideas being communicated in a passage. Provide an example of something familiar to the reader in order to explain something that may not be known. Rhetorical purpose questions give phrases like, why does the author mention? Why does the author discuss? What is the function of? The author mentioned X in order to. Here are some strategies for answering rhetorical purpose questions. First, read a sentence that contains the highlighted information. Look for similar words or phrases that establish the relationship between the highlighted information and other ideas. Summary chart questions. Ask you to determine which details in the passage are major supporting ideas to include in the summary and which details are only minor to not include in the summary. Summary chart questions give information like an introductory sentence for a brief summary of the passage is provided below. Complete the summary by selecting 3 answers. Choices that express the most important ideas in the passage. Here are some tips for answering summary chart questions. Number 1. Read the thesis statement that is provided. Number 2. Quickly read the topic statements for each paragraph. And number 3. Eliminate choices that are definitely false or not discussed in the passage. Schematic table questions. Ask you to outline the key information from a passage. You have to recognize overall organization of the information in the passage and major points of the passage. Schematic table questions give information like this. Complete the table below to summarize information about in the passage. Match the appropriate statement to. Here are some tips for answer schematic table questions. Number 1. Identify the strategies that are provided. Number 2. Scan each paragraph that discusses the related categories in the table for information that corresponds to the answer choice.